þá langar við sem sagt að kynna Bitten Jonsson og hún mun kynna okkur Greiningartækið ADDIS SUGAR sem hún hefur þróað. Bitten sænskur sérfræðingur í fíknimeðferðum og hjúkrunarfræðingur sem hefur meðal annars starfrækt matarfíkni meðferðarstöð sem var styrkt af heilbrigðis- og velferðarráði Svíþjóðar. Auk þess að hafa skrifað bækur, kennt og haldið fyrirlestra á alþjóðavettvangi. Bitten, it's a pleasure to have you here with us today. The podium is yours.
It's very frustrating to only understand a few words, and especially when you laugh, you know. I want to know what you're laughing at. I laugh when you laugh, and I don't understand. My goodness. Oh, yeah. Okay, let's see if we can get this on here. Okay, there we go. No. Do you hear me? Oh, good. Okay. I was wondering, does any one of you think that you've been in the wrong seminar when you see a knee up there? I hope so. You're thinking, wait a minute, what's she's going to do? I'm very pleased to be here. I've been to Iceland once before. It's many years ago. I think it was 94 or 95. So, and we were visiting Vågur. I was working at developing an open care clinic at the hospital in Hudiksvall, where I come from. And we were treating alcohol, subscription pills, and drugs. And at that time, you know, I wasn't really into food addiction so much. I didn't know so much about it. And I really enjoyed my visit here. The thing that I enjoyed most was horseback riding. I gotta admit that. I loved it. Okay. But anyway, I'm very pleased to be here, and it's wonderful to work with Esther. And I'm amazed that we have worked, you know, without really knowing each other, parallel, and we are reaching about the same place at the same time. I think that's a miracle, you know. That's what happens in this field. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to introduce you to a tool that I've been using. I was actually certified in what's called ADDIS, Alcohol and Drug Diagnostic Instrument, in the beginning of the 90s. That's when I got certified. And the tool I've been using then was for when I was working with alcoholics and drug addicts and subscription pills. And then when I started to work with food addiction, because of course, you know, I realized I was a sugar addict myself. In Sweden, we don't use the word food addiction. We say sugar and flour, because if you say food, nobody will understand what you're talking about. So we talk about sugar and flour addiction. And when I started to use it, I realized I had that problem myself. I went over to the United States and did some training, and actually I also lived in the US, and I've been treated for my alcoholism in the US. So there is where I come from. I'm trained in the US in what we call addiction medicine. And that's what my mission is, to spread the word about that. I love knowledge about addiction medicine. But anyway, so I started to develop this instrument for sugar and flour, and it works beautiful. So actually, I've been using it for many years and done a lot of interesting studies on it, and it works beautiful. And now we are introducing it more officially, so actually I'm going to start certifying people in Sweden the first week in November. So that's really good. So you are actually the first people I'm doing this professionally for, not the clients that I, you know, teach this to. So that's exciting. That I do it in Iceland. Who would think that? So anyway, we have our sore knee. You bear that in mind. And here's just some short things about me, what I've done. I was a nurse in 1973, so I'm pretty old, as you understand. And then I've done some further training in medicine. I freak out when I have to do surgery. You know, blood and greens, that's not my type. I was in treatment 1985, been in recovery since then. I used to say that I'm a proud member of AA. And I did some relapse and addiction training in 1990 with Terry Gorski, whom I've kept training with, and food addiction treatment and training since 93. And then I've been a member of NAATP, the National Association of Addiction Treatment Professionals in US, in 96, and I was certified in ADDIS 1990. And then I also studied nutrition and biochemistry, and integrative functional medicine and orthomolecular medicine, which I really love. And I'm a member of the Food Addiction Institute, so that was, what I've been doing. So imagine that you come to your work and you have had a sore knee for several weeks. What is your workmates going to do? Well, they're going to start guessing what the problem is, right? They're going to say it's a meniscus or, bursitis or acute cruciate ligament or plain inflammation or tick bite, right? That's what they're going to do. Would it be good to treat it from what they are guessing? No, probably not. You could do something very wrong if you do that. So we need to know, right? So the lack of knowledge about how to investigate people's relationship with the psychoactive drug. And what is a psychoactive drug? Can you give me some names of psychoactive drugs? Alcohol, cocaine, nicotine, sugar, cannabis. Okay, that's a psychoactive drug. Something that your brain can be addicted to, something that changes your well-being. So in Sweden at least, still in these days, people guess. If you walk out on the street here and you ask somebody, when is a person an alcoholic? You ask 10 people, how many answers are you going to get? Yeah. So people are going to say, well, you're an alcoholic when you lost your job, lost your family, you drink every day. Okay? Or you're an alcoholic if you binge drink Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Or you're an alcoholic, blah, 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 blah. And you're going to get all these things, So the important thing here is to think about, I used to say to people that come to me and think things, have opinions about food addiction, I said, I'm sorry, you have an opinion, I have insights. So, I don't discuss with people that only have opinions about things that have an insight. My sister is a milk farmer. What do you think if I've never milked a cow? I mean, I have a hard time knowing what's front and back on a cow. And I think they smell. So can you imagine if I would walk into the farm and start telling her how to milk a cow? She's going to hit me with a hay stick, boom. She said, get out of here, So, and this is what we do. This is what we do with addiction. Nobody has a lot of opinions about cancer and cancer treatment. We let the cancer experts deal with that. But when it comes to addiction, everybody wants an opinion without having the in-depth knowledge. Why is that? Can you tell me why? Why do we have a lot of opinion about addiction, but not other things? Have you ever thought about that? Am I wrong? No? So what's going on? Because we don't want to accept addiction. We don't want to accept loss of control. We want to believe that people can be in control if they sharp up, if they get harder at it, if they do more, if they're not lazy, bad character, blah, 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 right? That's why we have so many opinions about addiction, dependence. So we need to educate people a lot about addiction. That's very important. Because, you know what? Is a lot of people addicted today? Well, it's not an epidemic, it's a pandemic. Addiction is huge today. Huge. It is so huge that we don't see it. One aspect of addiction is that society normalizes what's sick behavior. So we think it's okay to drink a lot, to eat a lot, you know, all kinds of work lot. We don't know. We have so much addiction that we don't really see it. I don't really want to scare you, but it is true. We need to start daring to look at that. People are losing control and getting sick, and they're really destroying their lives. And we need to be on top of that and help people. So that's what we need to do. So we dare to diagnose. We dare to look at what are the criteria for when someone is an addict. Do you know anyone that is lying about how much cucumber they eat? Have you ever met someone? Have you ever met someone that hide and sneak cucumber wraps down in the garbage disposal? Have you seen any one of those? No, I haven't either. You know what? I never, ever had a client lie about cucumber, how much cucumber they eat. People lie about alcohol, people lie about sweets, people lie about drugs, people lie about a lot of things, how much they work, how much sex they have, if they're a sex addict, I mean, you name it. But people never lie about cucumbers. So we need to start daring to diagnose and look at what is a psychoactive drug or a psychoactive process. You know, there's a lot of research done too. We differ today with intake addiction, you know, things to stuff into yourself, and of course the process addictions. Do you know about process addictions? Are you familiar with that? Gambling, work, exercise, sex and relationship. Okay, those are process addictions. Do you know about brain research on those? Have you seen that latest thing? Well, when you start looking at the limbic system, the reward center of an alcoholic or a cocaine addict, we can take a cocaine addict. If you put a picture of the reward system of a human being on a paper, and you take it from a snake or a chicken or a cat or a dog or an elephant, you know what's going to happen? You cannot distinguish which is the human and which is the elephant. So everybody has a reward system. All living animals have reward systems. And there is where the problem starts when you start developing an addiction. I mean, you can make rats addicted. Do they have bad character? No, they don't. They don't know even what that is. So we start daring to diagnose. So there's a lot to understand about addiction and these things. But one thing that's a simple thing to ask somebody, you know, is things that you are hiding, sneaking, and lying about. That's probably an addiction. Why else would you hide, sneak, and lie? But that's not enough to build a diagnosis upon. You have to know more. So that's what we're going to talk about. The diagnostic evaluation tool. This tool that I'm working with is the only diagnostic tool we have today. There are several screening tools, but we need to understand what differences there is in a screening tool, an assessment, and a diagnosis. Okay. So this comes from the American SADS, which was developed many years ago by Norman G. Hoffman and Patricia Harrison. And then there is their website. And we also said that if anyone wants this material that I'm presenting, you know, you are free to mail Esther, and she can send you a PDF. So you don't have to write everything down. In the beginning of the 90s, there was this American lady that met Norman Hoffman in US, and she got familiar with this and thought that was wonderful to be able to diagnose. At those times, we talked about alcohol, drugs, and pills. And she brought it to Sweden, and she has developed it further. So actually, the ADDIS today, the Swedish version of SADS, is much better than the original SADS. And in Sweden, you need to be certified. So you need to do a lot of training to be ADDIS certified. And I'm going to show you what this is all about. So today we have one for adults, and we have one for the adolescent. And now we have the ADDIS S for sugar, and we are working on ADDIS G for gambling. So we're going to get. And one day, my dream is that we're going to have one ADDIS for every outlet, because addiction is an illness. And we're talking today about addiction interaction disorder. I mean, I am an addict. I have had several outlets for my addiction. So we know that very few people only have one outlet. So that's why it's so important to be familiar with an instrument where you can detect other outlets. Because we know that if you have a person and you only look at one outlet, you know, take an alcoholic, for instance. How many alcoholics do you think start eating sugar once they quit drinking? Most of them, yeah. But how many of them ate sugar before they started drinking? Most of them. Yeah. So sugar is the first drug that any addict will encounter. So every person in NA, Narcotics Anonymous, or GA, Gamblers Anonymous, or AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, most of them, I would say 97, 98% are sugar addicts. But of course, all of them don't want to know that. So that's the problem. So there you have the website for ADDIS. So today is based on DSM-4, and we soon have DSM-5 in Sweden. We don't have it translated yet, so we're still working on DSM-4 and ICD-10. Those are the international diagnostic catalogs. I'm not going to go into that so much. So ADDIS SRE, Sugar Research Edition. This is what I'm going to be talking about today. And also I'm going to talk about screening, assessment, and diagnosis. In the material you have in your folders, you have one of the screening instruments translated, I hope. Right, Esther? The UNCOPE? Yeah. The UNCOPE is translated in there. Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. That's a screening instrument.
But if we don't hold it UNCOPE, remember, it's called Skimun.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But it's from the UNCOPE. 2004, I was at CCAD in Atlanta, which is an international big conference where Mark Gold was. And Mark Gold, he's a professor in psychiatry, he's an MD at the Florida University. And he was asked many years earlier from the American Association of Drug Addiction to do research if anorexia, bulimia, overweight, binge eating, you know, obesity, are they different illnesses, or could it be an addictive disorder? That was the question. So they did many years of research, and this is the presentation of that research, and he was at that conference. And he states that certain foods, here he calls it hedonic foods, I think that's a fun word, hedonic food, sugar and flour, processed food, you know. Are they addictive? And yes, they were. So what they say when they look at the brain and research is that anorexia is an addiction, and it fills all the criteria on an addiction. Bulimia is an addiction. Overweight is an addiction, and obesity is an addiction. And obsession with food and, you know, overeating is addiction. So it's the same disease, just a little bit. It's like, you know, certain alcoholics are binge drinkers. They could go dry for several months, and then they binge for a week. And some alcoholics drink every day. So it's about the same thing. But they're all alcoholics, right? So that's the interesting part. So anyways, they're doing that. And anyone that was doubting that, he said, you know, we sort of knew this before, because if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. And if you think of the whole dieting industry, it's amazing that we really didn't talk about it as an addiction long, long before, because everybody knows how hard it is to diet. And everybody knows that just regular dieting is not going to work. You know, diet is falling on and falling off, falling on and falling off. You know, in Sweden, the most famous professor, Stefan Röstny, said that dieting doesn't work. But they don't offer any other solution. But we know that dieting doesn't work. So we need to look at it from another point of view. And also, I'd like to point out to you, how many of you know that we have a new sugar in everything today? Do you know about high fructose corn syrup? Yeah. It's the worst toxic ever. It's extremely potent, extremely addictive, and it's almost in everything. When I updated my book, 2010, The Sugar Bomb, I was writing to the food health authority in Sweden. I don't know what you call them, Livsmedelsverket, as we say. I was asking them, because they always, the sugar company in Sweden say that sugar can't be addicting because it's only, we only eat, they say this, we only eat 43 kilo per person per year. That's huge. 43 kilo per person per year. How much is it here? 50, 60. You're kidding me. Guys, worse. Oh my God. Okay, I thought we were worse. But anyway, it's worse in the US. But anyway, so they say that, you know, it stayed the same for many years, but they forget that this is the sugar they put in everything now, and they call it different names. So I asked them, how much of this kind of sugar is in everything we sell that people eat in Sweden today? And they said to me, very snotty, we don't know that. You have to ask the companies that makes it. And you know, journalists in Sweden have tried to track how much of this we have in our food today, and nobody knows. But the Americans say that it is as much as the regular sugar. So that means that we're eating almost 90 kilo sugar per person per year. Can you believe that? It's horrible. No wonder we're sick. No wonder we have a pandemic. Yeah. And Robert Lustig, if you haven't watched his movies on YouTube, please watch Robert Lustig. He's excellent. He says that if babies and children get this kind of sugar from when they're young, we're going to ruin their metabolic chain so that we can never fix it. We can never treat that. Because this is a sugar that is very, very dangerous to our Stonehenge genes. Our bodies cannot process this. So it's very dangerous. Okay, and also what they say to me in Sweden, you know, many doctors and professionals in the field, they say to me that sugar addiction don't exist because you can't be addicted to something that's natural. And I said, wait a minute, where does nicotine come from? You know, cocaine. It all comes from things that are natural, but it's processed. So, and one obesity professor in Sweden, he say that he doesn't believe in sugar addiction because he never seen a client sit and pour sugar in their mouth from the package. And I said, where did he learn nutrition from? Has he never eaten K Special, you know those mueslis? You have a lot of those here, right? Do you know how much sugar is in those? Weight Watchers K Special, how much? How much sugar is that? 80%. 80. 80. All the mueslis are candies. Don't eat grain, muesli grain. You're going to kill yourself. If you want to get sick, eat them with vanilla yogurt. That's a lot of sugar. So it's the first drug in addictive-prone brain encounters. It's lots of research today. And here are some of the ones: Gold, Nicola Vena, Charlotte Albertsson, Erlandsson in Sweden, and many, many others that have done this research. So, oh yeah, and this is also a new book that we have, and you could show that, Esther. Food and Addiction, a Comprehensive Handbook. And here is what he says, that some food act as addictive substances on the brain, a hard concept for experts in the nutrition obesity field. That's interesting. Okay, I work from the notion of ASAM. ASAM is the American Medical Association's addiction specialist. And 2011, they came with a new definition of addiction, that this is a physical brain disease with physical, psychological, social, and spiritual or existential consequences. So it's actually brain disease. It's a primary disease. It's not caused by anything else. That's also something that the professionals really think that it's caused by something psychological, you know, trauma or something, but it isn't. You could have a very good childhood and become an addict. You could have a horrible childhood and become an addict, you know. It has nothing to do with that. It's about a sensitive brain. That's why you become an addict, and that's what you need to understand. Otherwise, you can't treat it. And of course, you have to deal with all other problems that might be there, but you have to understand that this is a primary disease. And that's why you have to diagnose it as such and start there.
Just wanted to tell you that on page 10 in the material, we've translated this definition from
Oh, good. Okay. So this is the basic from which we deal with all kinds of outlets of addiction. And the word addiction comes from the Latin addicere, which means a judge, sentence, doom, award, assign, be propitious, confiscate, and enslave. So it's about obsession. You know, you're hooked. Once your brain have developed the addiction, you are like a missile, you know, a goal-seeking missile. You're locked on target. You're going to keep doing things although you don't want to. You lose control. The addiction takes over everything, your thoughts, your feelings, and your behavior. And that's very important to understand. And also we have the addiction interaction disorder. Okay. And studies show today that mostly 17% only have one outlet, you know, like alcohol and nothing else. I think it is less than that today. I think it's much less, but that's the latest studies we have. And we only know that 80% of all the relapses are due to hidden outlets that we didn't find out, you know, like alcohol and drug addicts relapse a lot because they don't deal with the sugar and flour addiction. Sugar and flour disturbs and stresses the brain so that your alcohol and drug craving gets much worse. So that's something the whole treatment field needs to start being aware of. Because a lot of people criticize, you know, the type Minnesota model that they have, you know, too many relapses. And I think it is because we don't deal with the underlying addiction, you know, the sugar and flour addiction under it. So we need to start doing that. It's a multifaceted illness, you know, one disease, many outlets. And changing the outlets is as constructive as changing cabin on the Titanic. It's still going to go to hell. I think that's a very good saying. And there you have a lot of psychoactive substances, of course, you know, if you need a list of those. And here you have some process addictions. Okay. Why is it so important to do a diagnosis? Well, it's unethical to treat a person without knowing what we're treating. And, you know, also it's risk for incorrect treatment. If we have a person, in the addiction medicine, this is something that is automatic to do. I used to call it a work-related problem I have. If I go into a room, you know, with a lot of people, I immediately start putting them in 3 groups, especially if there's food and drinks around, you know, then I can see it really easily. You start looking at certain and say, oh, well, that's social use. You see, those are the ones that get a drink, they put it away and don't know where they put it. They forget where they have it. And you know, they get chocolate mousse, and they eat 3 spoons, and they say, God, I'm filled, you know. That's rich, you know, I don't want any more. Those are the social users, the normies, as we call them. And then you have the people that do harmful use. They can look at addicts, but they're not addicts. They are the emotional eaters, or, you know, they get a bag of chocolate when when they break up from a relationship and they jam it down and then they go, oh my God, I don't want to see chocolate for 3 weeks. You know, and they go on vacation and they drink alcohol every day for 2 weeks and they come home and they don't keep doing it, you know. So they have not enough knowledge about nutrition or danger or, but harmful use, you could get a lot of consequences, but you're not obsessed as an addict is. So it's not addiction. And then you have the addicts, you know. If when I was active, if somebody put chocolate mousse in front of me, I ate it in 3 seconds, and then I tried to steal the others, and then I was on my way out in the kitchen to get the chef's bowl. And then I wanted to go and buy more. I mean, that's addiction, right? So it's very good. You need to know what you're doing. It wouldn't be that terrible if you treated somebody with harmful use as an addict, but it would be very dangerous if you took an addict and treated them as they had harmful use, because that's when you were trying to get them to drink a little bit or eat a little bit. You didn't understand what the drug is doing to their brain, because then you need to take away the drug totally if there is an addict. So that would be very dangerous. And it's very essential for the person that is afflicted to understand that they have this problem, you know. This is really how bad it is. So that's why you need to do all these changes. And also, it's very important, of course, when we do research for treatment results. I mean, that's what we see a lot in the research field, that they say that this and that didn't work or this and that worked. And I'm thinking, how do you know that? I mean, if you treat a social user and a harmful user and addict all the same in a group, you're not going to know what you're looking at. There's no way you can do that. So there is the PDF that we have that we'd be happy to mail to you too, that's called Avoid the Pearls of Instrument Abuse, which is telling how important it is that you use the right instrument in the right instance. Okay. Choosing adequate treatment programs and aftercare, very important. So what we're talking about here is the screening, and you have that in your material. You know, a screening is just a quick way of establishing if it might be a problem. And those 6 simple questions that you have there, I have used those for years. And the key to that is that if you have someone that say no to every one of those 6, or maybe have one, most people will overeat sweets at one time or another without any problems. So 0 to 1, that's a normie. It indicates a normie, you know, social user. If you answer 2 or 3 yes on those questions, you probably have harmful use. You need to look over how you eat. You need to eat healthier and better foods, or you're going to get some consequences when you get older, usually. But if you say yes to 4 or more, you are in trouble. It indicates addiction. You need to have somebody look at your problems deeper. That's very important to understand. So if you answer 4 or more, you need more help. And there is, of course, some tests you could take. You could do a blood sugar curve, weight curve, fasting insulin, IGF, homocysteine, the Klein story, or so forth. But screening is only to indicate where you're going. You know, is there a problem or isn't it a problem? So you could use that at any doctor's office, at the GP's office, at if you have some healthcare office at your work or whatever, you know. It's meant to be used in big groups to sort of start doing some sorting. Okay. And then, of course, you can do a clinical evaluation and biochemical assessment. And I use 9 different instruments when I do an assessment on somebody. You know, I look at thyroid, I look at the adrenals, I look at the intestinal health care, I look at metabolic screening questionnaire, I look at neurotransmitters, I look at a lot of things, you know, to see how they are feeling and the health status of a person. So I do that a lot more. And also, of course, ask them a lot of questions about their situation and how they feel about food and all that. And then we have the ADDIS, the diagnostic. So what ADDIS is, actually, ADDIS SUGAR, it's a therapeutic interview. You establish a very special relationship with someone when you ask them the questions in there. And it's 95 questions. So it takes some time to do this. So if you have only one outlet, which is pretty rare, it will take about 40 minutes. If you have more, it takes up to an hour. If you have a person with a lot of outlets, it might take up to 1.5 hours if they have subscription pills and alcohol and all that. But it's worth every minute of it. It's worth every minute of it doing it. And you're going to see why in a little bit, why it is so important. It's objective. It's not dependent who does the assessment. It's not what someone think if you're addicted or not. But then here we get, the results is based upon the client's own answers. So it's not something you value in any way, shape, or form. And that's very good, I think. And it provides quality assurance for both you and your client. You know what you're going to deal with when you have done this. And most of all, I think it is the way I use it most is to help somebody see through their denial and their pain and their shame. Because when you do this, they understand they have an illness and it can be treated. That's what I think is wonderful. So it increases motivation. And also it gives me all the knowledge I need to know in order to make the precise treatment plan, And I can also see if this is the early stage, middle stage, late stage. And I get a feel for where the client is in the breaking the denial process. And so there's a lot of answers I get from doing this. It takes away stigma. It's a disease because it's a diagnosis. But this is the problem with addiction. Don't you agree? People around can see, but as an active addict, what do we think? We think that, well, I just need to sharp up. I just need to do it better, higher, harder, longer, and then I will succeed. I used to say that I'm the last house on the street when it comes to meeting clients. The first house on the street is probably, some kind of a diet advice in a glossy magazine, air stewardess diet or something, banana or white wine or egg or what have you. Have you seen those popular diets, That's the first house on the street. The second house on the street is usually Weight Watchers. And then we have Herbalife, and then we have Cambridge method. I don't know if you have that here. You have powders and pills and what have you, and more diets. And then you have, all the geographical escape, buy a dog, change husband, buy a new house, get one more kid, new car. Have you heard about those two? Only if I get that job, I will lose weight. Only if that happened. Only if I blah, 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 blah. So, people keep trying all these things for years and years. And finally, when everything is tried and they feel really rotten and really sick, then they can accept that maybe it's an addiction. That's when they come to me. That's why I'm the last house on the street. When they are on sick leave, and, they're broke, and they're really, really in bad shape. And then, other professionals look at us that work with addiction and say, why don't you fix them in 3 weeks? Have they lost weight now? Have they kept it off? In 3 weeks, or something like that. That's crazy. But that's due to this problem. I'm going to run you through a case study real quick because you need to look at this. Okay. So this is the most common case I have when I deal with addiction. It's usually a female around 40 to 50, and I'm the last house on the street. So, she's tried a lot. She's done it all. Weight Watchers 10 times and, what have you. And she's married, have 2 children. She's employed as a traveling saleswoman, very good economy, very ambitious, always very weight conscious, exercises daily. That's not healthy. The current situation is that during a recent business trip, she did not show up at her client's office and could not be reached. Returned to work that afternoon, she was disheveled, stressed, drained, agitated, and very nervous. The chemical situation is, when I look back, at age 6, she started to overeat sugar and flour and lying about food. At the age 15, she was dieting for the first time. Age 16, she started smoking. And do you know why women start smoking? To lose weight, yeah. It's not about group pressure or because it is, fancy to do it. It's because they know it's a dieting tool. Actually, that's how it was marketed in the US a long time ago, as a dieting advice. That's why I started smoking in nursing school, because we were dieting. I don't know how we managed to become, educated or certified as nurses, because we were dieting all the time, partying and dieting. That's what I remember. It's true. At age 18, she started drinking. Aged 18 to 22, she was dating, partying, and living life, And then she was married, and she had 2 pregnancies, and she gained 60 pounds on each. During the time she had her babies and was nursing, she had no alcohol or nicotine, but she resumed both after nursing. And she cannot lose weight and binging and vomiting. At age 29, she resumed alcohol and nicotine use, started dieting again, exercising daily vigorously, overeating, binging, vomiting, problems within the marriage, working too much, weight gain, reduced exercise, avoidance of family. She started to eat alone secretly. So this is a very common case, actually. At age 33, she had health problems, migraine, body pain. She started to eat Tylenol every day and terrible mood swings. At age 35, sleeping problems, periods of depressions, and benzodiazepines. Actually, it was a sleeping pill called Imovan. Do you have that here? Yeah, okay. It's a drug. And age 39, continued health problems, but she quit smoking, and weight gain, increased use of alcohol and benzodiazepines. 41, quit alcohol, benzodiazepines, smoking, cold turkey, because she was feeling so sick. She got into heavy-duty depression and anxiety for 3 months, food binging totally out of control. And at 42, she got the diagnosis fibromyalgia and a lot of weight gain. And at age 46, she got diabetes type 2. Do you think this is a very strange case? You think it's a very common case? It's a very common case, yeah. She's been to the doctor's office a lot, complaining about sleeping problems, stressed, overworked, burnout, all that. I read a recent study which showed that if a patient comes to the doctor's office, usually the GP, and is overweight, how many of the doctors, they don't go to the doctor and complain about the weight problem, because of course they're very ashamed about doing that. So they go for pain in their legs or, headache or stressed or sleeping problems. So how many of the doctors dared to address that they saw that the person was overweight, Very few. Very few. Less than 17% said, hey, I can see that you're overweight. You have a problem with that. Can I help you? Why didn't they?
Don't have any solutions.
That's one reason. But I think the biggest reason is that we think you caused it yourself. Which you didn't, of course, but that's what we think. We want to be stuck in that rut. Yeah, well, you've done this to yourself, Not that it is about biochemistry and the wrong food. Yeah, I think that's the reason. So it's shameful. So anyway, this is a very common client for me. I've had thousands of those during the years. Anyway, when I do the ADDIS on her, and the first thing, when you do the 95 questions of ADDIS, which I don't have time to go through all of those here, of course, but when we do that, you know, it's only yes or no questions. So there's a lot of questions, and you ask the question, and they always answer first yes or no. And if it is yes, like, have you ever eaten more sweets or flours, sugar and flour than you thought of eating? And they said yes. Okay, and then you ask, have you done that more than one time last year? Yes. Have you done it last month? Yes. And then, how old were you when you did that the first time? That's how you get this information. So there are all these questions, and then you say the same question again if it is alcohol or pills or drugs or what have you. So that's why you get the results the way you get it, you know. It's very structured, very structured. So anyway, when I did that on her, the first thing you get to know is this harmful use or is it addiction? And if you look at her sugar and food, you see that the things you see here are the criteria, the international criteria in DSM-4 ICD-10. So those are set already. And when I add together all her questions, I see that she has, you know, symptoms in every one of the criteria, as you can see here. And when you count them together, she has 23 symptoms in spread in 7 of the 7 criteria. There is 7 criteria. And A stands for symptom during the last 12 months, also actual. So if somebody would do this on me today for sugar, it would say L everywhere here. Since I'm drug-free today, you know, L, lifetime, more than 12 months ago. So food addict in remission. You see the difference? And this is actual. So anyway, she has 23 symptoms in 7 criteria. And according to ADDIS, it's if you have more than three or more symptoms spread in 3 criteria, you have the addiction diagnosis. So is she an addict or not? Yeah, really. So that's the first answer you get from doing this tool. And also, I asked the same question with alcohol and the Imovan, you know, the sleeping pills. And as you can see, with alcohol, she has 8 symptoms in 6 criteria. So is she an alcoholic? Yeah, she is. And the sedative, the Imovan, 10 symptoms in 7 criteria. Did she develop an addiction to the Imovan? Yeah. 3 and 3 is enough. Okay? So she has 3 outlets. And then comes the next best tool ever, the one that is really the cream de la cream, as we say, in doing this diagnostic tool. And that's the addiction development curve. And I'm going to run you through it. This is what I sit down with the client and develop a treatment plan and talk about how your life is. And if you look at this, you see that the symptoms I was talking about, you have those here. It is a total of 24. It doesn't show all the way down, but it's 24 symptoms total in the whole ADDIS that points that it is an addiction. Okay? And here you put in the client's age. She was 46 when she came to me. Here you have her weight, okay? And then you have certain things here which I will go through with you. Here you have the color-coded things, and you see N stands for nicotine, A, green, alcohol, S, red, sugar, W, weight, blue, and B, benzodiazepines. It's the Imovan, the pills. Okay. So let's look at this. So when you add up her answers, yes, I have done that more than once last year. And yes, I started when I was at age whatever, 6, 12, 14. That's how you get this curve. So it's built up on the answers in the structured interview form. Are you with me on that? Okay. So let's see what's going to happen here. There you have sugar. So at the age of 6, she does have 2 symptoms. You see, it's 2 steps down of addiction, already at age 6. And, you know, you see that this is a very progressive disease. You see that the older she gets, the more symptoms she gets. You see how it progresses? So that's her addiction development curve on sugar. So it never goes back. She gets worse for each year, you know. More and more symptoms, more and more symptoms. Okay. And that's very important to point out for this client. And then comes the next thing, which is alcohol. And she's, as you can see, 17 years when she starts drinking. And this is interesting. When you do this, you can also see that the first drug that somebody encounters, whichever that is going pretty slow in the beginning, but when the next drug comes, it's going faster. Why is that? Do you know why that is? It's called sensitivity, or cross-addiction is the word we used in the earlier days. Sensitivity is what we call it now. One drug is sort of paving the way for the next addiction. We know that if you're an alcoholic, well, if you're a nicotine addict and start drinking, you have 9 times the increased risk to become an alcoholic compared to one that is not smoking. And if you're eating sugar, you have a much higher incidence of becoming nicotine addict than alcoholic. So one drug is actually paving the way for the next drug. So that's why an addict is an addict is an addict. So a lot of people in AA that keep smoking, they say, I don't have a problem with sugar. You wait until we take away the nicotine. You're going to see what's going to happen. They're going to start eating sugar like crazy. Yeah. So that's very interesting. So anyway, so you see that how many symptoms does she have from alcohol? Well, she has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Immediately, within a 6-month period. That's very common. And what's she doing there? She starts smoking, right? And we don't do a curve on that one. We just ask, when did you start smoking regularly? And when daily for more than 3 months. And when they do that, that's the age we put in there. Okay, so she goes smoking until she's about 22. And what happens then? Well, pregnancy 1. She gets pregnant. And she quits smoking, as you're going to see. See? Oh, okay, those switched place. Oh, that was fun. Esther, we were playing with this yesterday. I wonder if we touched something. So anyway, what you can see here is that during her childbirth and nursing 2 babies, she was having a break with nicotine and the alcohol. But she resumes both after, you know, the babies are nursed. And what you see here too is very interesting. Look at this. It's going further down. Now she has 6 symptoms. And there she has 8 symptoms. So it's progressing. If she had not become an alcoholic, it would not have progressed like that. It would have stayed the same, a straight line over here. Okay. Another thing that we see that's very interesting when you do this and you have different outlets is that if you cut one drug, the other one gets worse. So if somebody, you know, you force somebody to quit drinking, they're going to eat more. If you force somebody to quit eating, they're going to drink more. And this is happening a lot with my clients, that they don't view themselves as alcoholics, but they have pathological drinking patterns. But food is the main drug, so they always see themselves as food addicts. And I said, how are you doing with alcohol? Well, no, that's not a big problem. And then we put them on a food plan, and they quit the sugar and flour, and you know, they're going to call and say, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I like to drink more now. Well, yeah, of course. You know, the brain wants a drug. So that's why it's important to see this. And when I did ADDIS on 202 clients, when I had the treatment facility, 74% of those were alcoholics, but they never, ever saw themselves as alcoholics. So that's why it's so important to ask these questions to food addicts. And actually, alcohol is sugar. So alcohol, even if you don't think you're an alcoholic, you're a food addict, should you have alcohol in your food plan? No, of course not. You're going to relapse like crazy into the food, you know, if you do that. So you need to take that away, of course. So what happens here is that she keeps doing that. And when you see the final here, you're going to understand why she's starting to binge and vomiting at the age of 30. But what happens before that, if you look at this curve, this is the sleeping pills. And you see here we had 2 down in the beginning. Here we have 5 down in the beginning. And look what's happening here, 7. So she becomes addicted to the sleeping pills faster than any of the other 2. And that's because she's already a sugar addict and an alcoholic. So if you add pills to that, that's like putting gasoline on the fire, you know, boom. So it goes very fast. So that's what you can see from this too. And as you see, she becomes highly addicted to those within a couple of years. But what's happening here is too that she gets so much anxiety because benzodiazepines creates a lot of anxiety in an addict, you know. You don't feel well from that and from the alcohol. So now she's feeling really miserable. So she goes cold turkey. And you know what happened with the sugar then? Look at this. She cuts benzodiazepines, alcohol, and nicotine. And look what's happening to the sugar. Boom. So we plug one hole and the other gets worse. So that's what we see from this too. And that's when she goes into depression and anxiety for quite a while. And then we're going to see what's happening to the weight. So until she's about, 16, she looks at pictures and she's not really overweight. But isn't that interesting too that a lot of us felt really fat when we were young, although when we look at the pictures we weren't? Why is that? Is it all psychological? Pardon me? Well, I think there is a more interesting biochemistry reason behind that. I'm absolutely convinced, and this is what I think we need to understand with anorexia too. Carbohydrates bind, 1 gram of carbohydrate binds 3 grams of water. So if we eat a lot of junk food, sugars and flour, we get swollen on the inside. And actually there's studies done on that. You can be fat on the inside around your organs. So you feel fat. You feel swollen and fat. You're not on the outside. So everybody keeps telling you, you're not fat, you could eat that, but you feel stuffed. So it has to do with the fluid. Because if you put somebody like that on a low-carb diet, what's going to happen? They're going to pee it out, and they're going to feel much better. So that's something to keep in mind. If you eat a lot of sugar and flour, you're going to be swollen. And actually, you can, I used to touch my clients, I like to touch them here. You can measure that. You can't lift the skin on a person that is eating a lot of carbohydrates because they're swollen. So that's very simple to do, a test. And you can do that on people that are skinny, and you can feel that something is wrong. They are stuffed. So she feels fat, and when you look at the picture, she's not. But she starts dieting, and she diets her way up to a lot of kilos, because dieting causes you to gain weight, right? Because you press down, and you binge eat, and you press down, and you binge eat, and you know what? Yeah, that's the way it goes. And you screw up your insulin and insulin resistance and metabolism and all that kind of stuff. But that's a whole other lecture. But anyway, so this is what she's doing. And she starts dieting, and of course, for a while that works, you know, but then she becomes pregnant. And a lot of women tell me when they come to my office, I have a lot of men too that come, and it's the same illness, so, you know, it's not only a female illness at all. I think it is that men are more okay with admitting that they lost the battle with alcohol. It's not as shameful as losing the battle with ice cream and cookies. So I think that's the reason men hesitate longer before they ask for help. Okay, now I lost track of what I was saying here. Oh, anyway, she's starting to diet and it works. Pregnancy. They come to me and say, I became fat when I was pregnant. Well, that's not a reason to become fat. Unless, if you really ask the right question, you know, they're going to tell you that since I'm already going to be having a big tummy, I don't have to diet right now. I can take my chance to eat everything I love to eat. And what is that? Sugar and flour. So they're going to start overeating and eat for two, you know. So of course they're going to gain a lot of weight. And then their brain is so addicted that when they have the baby and start nursing, it's impossible to quit eating that shit. So they're going to keep eating it and get fatter and fatter. That's usually what happens in many, many cases. So of course she's going to gain a lot of weight when she's pregnant and nursing, you know. And then after that, she's trying to go into Weight Watchers and dieting and all that, and it doesn't work because she keeps losing control and binge eating all the time on junk food. And then somebody tells her, why don't you throw up after you eat? You know, it's not only young people that do that. You know, so she thinks that's a good idea, so she starts doing that, binging and vomiting. But of course, you know, with drinking alcohol and taking sleeping pills and all she gets really sick, so she quits that. But she does lose some weight. But instead, she gets a lot of anxiety and mood swings and everything. And when she quits all these things, you see what's going to happen to her weight. See? So she quits benzodiazepines, she quits drinking, she quits nicotine, and she gets depression and anxiety, and she just eats and eats and eats and eats and eats and eats up to here. And she gets fibromyalgia, which is an inflammatory illness. It's not a psychological, it's an autoimmune disease, but you know that. And diabetes, which is also inflammatory illness, of course. So this is the picture we get from ADDIS SUGAR. I'm almost run out of time, right? You're losing track of time too. You should wave you should wave that thing to me. I remember before you. Anyway, this is the result I get from the diagnostic. First of all, I know, does she have an addiction or not? I showed you that earlier, and then we get this result when we add it all together. So this is what I sit down with her and do, and we go through this. And usually the question they have from this is, what the reaction my clients have when they see this is, I said, I knew it was bad, but I didn't know it was this bad. This is your life, okay? So it's a very therapeutic, motivational time to sit down together and go through this. And also what we do is that we can put in here, like, you know, parents, divorce, traumas, anything that happened in your life, we can put in here, you know, alongside here. Everywhere, we can put that in here. So you get a picture of your whole life with this. And this gives us the starting point to start developing a treatment plan from where we are here. That's a good thing with this. So I'm almost running out of time. Okay. So this is my favorite tool to sit down and do with the client and help them see reality. Because it's only when you understand and see your reality you can do something about it. You can never have a good solution to anything you really don't understand what's wrong. But here you do. Half a minute. You kidding me? Okay. This is also the symptom curve that we get. And the numbers you see here are actually the questions in the ADDIS formula. So if she's answered only yes to these, she is in a very early stage. She was not this case. If she answered yes to these numbered questions, she's in medium stage phase. If we also have these questions, she's in late stage. So you can see that we can get all these interesting information from doing this. And I have a lot more to tell you, but my time is out. So I'm going to stop there and hope that you have some good questions in the afternoon.
We're going to thank Bitten for that really interesting lecture. We're going to allow 1 or 2 questions. I'll maybe start by saying that I know this person. I know it from my office. I know it from my personal life. And in myself, the pregnant woman was myself. Yeah. Yeah, I was going to be fat, so it didn't matter how much I ate at that time. Yeah. So, 1 or 2 questions.
Hello, my name is Sept. Thank you for your talk. I'm just wondering if the person has few addictions, like you said, had alcohol, drugs, and food, and also depression. Which one do you start tackling first?
The one that is the most harmful and dangerous to a client. Now, she had quit drinking, as you saw, by herself. So here we started with the food. But if I get somebody in, you know, that's like, if she would have been using all these others, you know, we probably would have to start with the alcohol and benzodiazepines in a hospital setting, you know, with a detox program. So it's always the one that is most harmful, most dangerous, that can kill you fastest. That's the one we take first. Yeah. Yeah? Any more questions? Is this something that you find useful, you think? Okay. Good. Excuse me? Coffee? Well, you know, of course, you know, somebody could be addicted to coffee, and I don't have so many clients addicted to coffee, really, as I have sodas, Coke. I think they are very tough to detox, you know. I have clients that drink 8 to 12 liters of sodas a day, and you really need to detox them with caffeine pills and a lot of supplements and special foods. Otherwise, they go into really migraine and you know, they're really sick. So, yeah, we detox those.
I'm just wondering how much is this instrument used? Do you know that? Are you familiar with that?
I'm the only one that is authorized to use it so far. I have not trained anyone else in using it. We're just starting. That's what we're going to do in November.
So it's just
Yeah. So it's not very widely used yet, but we have finally come to the point where people have understood the value of it. So now we have a lot of people that want to use it and want to be trained in it. So that's I love that. Yeah.
How long time does it take this consultation to get this story and
Well, if it's only like one outlet, you know, if we will have only sugar, only the food, you know, about 40 minutes for a trained clinician that is trained to doing this. If you have several outlets, it could be anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half. And then, of course, it's a computerized program today, so you get the results pretty quickly. Once you put the questions in on the computer, you know, it spits out the results and the addiction development curve. And you can sit down with your client and start to develop a treatment plan. Yeah. And usually in Sweden, you know, we're planning that to have specialized addiction counselors or nutritional therapists or nurses doing it. And you do it as a preparation for the doctor to set the diagnosis. Yeah, so you work together. Research on the tool? Well, the actual tool as such and the addiction criteria, the international addiction criteria, that's all set. So what we're doing is validating only for sugar and flour. The others are done. You know, we measure that validation means that we measure, how do you say this? We make sure it measures what it's supposed to measure. But we have done a lot of that already. And we have...
Like information about the research? Is it in the handout?
No, it's not. But it's coming. Oh.
Yeah. Maybe it would be good to hear that the ADDIS itself, coming from subs, has been used for diagnosing.
Oh yeah, for a very long time. For years and years. There's a lot of research on that. Yeah, if you go into that site, that's why I said that if you want to go further into understanding and see that research, it's only the sugar flour part that is not validated yet. Because first they validated alcohol and then drugs and then so forth, you know. So now it comes to this. But the instrument itself is a lot of research on. And you can see that on those 2 websites that I had in the beginning. So if you want to do that, get the handout. I'll get the PDF from Esther. And you can go in there.
And maybe one last question.
Oh. Hi.
I was wondering, I see that you talk about sugar. Here in Iceland and I guess elsewhere, people talk about food addiction. You seem to be working with sugar addiction. Can you maybe comment on if there is a difference and what it is?
Well, the research shows that, you know, we talk a lot about food addiction, overeating, and fat. Certain people binge on fat or whatever. But if you really look at it, and I've looked at about 6,000 clients for 22 years, you know, the thing that screws your brain up is sugar and flour and processed food. So if you have 5 kilos of lard, and that's all you're going to eat, no spices, no nothing to it, you're not going to be able to eat a lot of lard, I promise you. So fat is not addictive in that way unless you mix it with carbohydrates. So it's the actual sugar. Flour is sugar, right? You know, you chew bread and it's sugar in your mouth immediately. So it's the carbohydrates that are the addictive substance. That's why we call it sugar and flour addiction. Yeah. So, you know. So, I mean, food addiction, if it was in that case, you know, you would argue that you can never eat anything. And that's not the case, of course not. Yeah. Okay. And I think also it's very important, this is very important to study more nutritional aspects because as we're talking, you know, some people, when you look at food plans, some of my clients cannot have one berry or any kind of fruit. They trigger immediately. Whilst other patients with this illness can have fruit in their meal plan and not trigger. So it's very individual what kind of food you trigger on. And that makes it very difficult to treat. But we need to really go into that much, much more. And if you look at me, for instance, I cannot eat apples. Apples trigger me. I get more hungry and I want more apples. I want 2, 3, 4 apples. But if I have a banana, I can eat a banana, I'm enough. But bananas is sweeter than apples. So that wouldn't fit actually. But that's the way it is. So you need to develop the individual food plan for each person. But we know what we know what the drug food is. It's anything that contains sugar and is processed, you know, with flour and artificial flavoring, artificial sweeteners, trans fats. We know that all those play havoc with your metabolic system and it's going to create craving. But then there's a lot of other aspects too, you know, like if you have a lot of, your stomach is broken, you know, you have a lot of candida or you have a lot of problems with your stomach, you don't have enough chloric acid or enough enzymes, you know, you don't take up food. Your methylation ability is broken, so your body will not take up the nutrients. And that's going to cause your brain to crave nourishment and more food. So there's a lot we need to know about the biochemical repair in the brain. Because your brain is made out of what you eat. Isn't that wonderful? So what kind of fuel do you want to put into your brain today? Good fuel, bad fuel?
Okay. We thank Bitten for that.
Thank you.
Og þá komið Matarheilla. Við byrjum aftur 12:15 stundislega, þannig ég sé bara verið ykkur á góðu.
Attack clients and diabetes clients that if you are a member of a layman group, you have a 50% higher chance to recover than if you're trying to do it yourself. So any kind of illness, you know, you need people to walk with you. So you need the community. And that's what is making the 12 steps so unique, that you really have friends that understand you. Because, as I said, somebody that doesn't have an addiction cannot understand one that has an addiction. So you need to really have somebody to talk to that understands your language. So we need to start looking at treatment in a different way. We're all familiar with seeing something as psychosomatic, you know. If you're stressed, you can have a back pain or headache. We all understand that. That if our psyche is having a problem, you know, you can have some, I don't know why it's doing that. You can have problem in your body. But we need to switch that into somatopsychic. Do you understand what I mean? If your body is unbalanced, you can be aggressive, sad, and depressed. It was a study coming out now that shows that a lot of couples' quarrels were due to blood sugar problems. You know, do you know how people become when they have low blood sugar? Are they fun to be around? How does men act when their blood sugar is dripping? How do they react? Well, they get a lot of noradrenaline, so they become very aggressive. How does women react? Pain and whiny. Pain everywhere and complaining a lot. That's what happens. Okay. So we need to study systems biology and see that everything is connected with each other. That's very important. We jumped that one because we don't have a lot of time. Half hour, yeah. So we need to look at this as a brain disorder with multiple consequences in physical, psychological, social, and spiritual areas of a person's life. And this places great demands on cooperation, skills, competence, and treatment models. So this is how we know. We screen, we do an assessment, and we diagnose. That's what we're doing. And this is what's telling us the difference, if it is harmful use or addiction or dependency. And I thought that you can actually look at these things by yourself if you get the PDF from us, what definition it is on functional medicine and orthomolecular medicine. But basically we can say that it's a complement to traditional medicine, where we mainly look at a person as they have a unique biochemistry, and that we try to adjust each treatment plan according to that person's biochemistry, you know, and what they can tolerate or not tolerate. So we don't treat every person exactly the same. It's tailored treatment plans. And also here, we look very much at what's causing a problem. I mean, a lot of clients comes to me and have been on omeprazole. Do you know what that is? Do you have that here? Yeah. The interesting thing is that, you know, gastric acid, you know, in your stomach, you can have those symptoms if you have too little hydrochloride in your stomach or too much. And a lot of people eat omeprazole, you know, and lowers that, which means that you don't break down protein very well. So you get a lot of deficiencies. Actually, you can get dopamine deficiency from that. So, you know, one thing is to give them hydrochloric acid pills and take away the omeprazole. And you get a person that is not constipated, that is not having a bloated tummy anymore, that feels really good. But you did the opposite of what the traditional treatment were doing. So this is what I mean with functional, integrative functional medicine, that you go further beyond the symptom and look what might be causing this. A lot of people that have been eating a lot of carbohydrates, they have a lot of enzymes that break down carbohydrates. So when they switch to a different diet, they eat more fat than protein, you know. Their tummy goes bonkers, and they feel really tired, and that's because they have too little of the enzymes that break down protein and fat. So you need to replace that in order for them to get over the hump, you know, and come around and process the food. So there's a lot of things like that that we work with within this area. And orthomolecular medicine is basically the same then. Something that I think is very interesting for the people that are in a 12-step program, and especially AA, is that Bill was good friend with the first doctor that sort of invented orthomolecular medicine, Abraham Hoffer. Has anyone heard about Abraham Hoffer? Esther? Okay. They were good friends, and Bill had a lot of depressions. And Abraham Hoffer treated him with vitamin B3. And today we know that vitamin B3 is excellent to use when you have depressions. And it's also excellent to use if you have a high cholesterol instead of statins. So that's good. So I think that's a good history back.
Can you put it closer to your mouth?
Oh, is it falling off? Is that what's jumping around? Okay. So we need to work together. And one of the toughest things is to have a consensus. I mean, if we don't agree that food addiction exists, which it does, I mean, it's proven. So it's not a matter of opinion, actually. But you might not want to accept it. But we need to look at things the same way, you know, and have some kind of a consensus and a common approach to this problem. But maybe we could at least agree on that some people cannot control their food intake. That's a good start, right? Could we start there? Yeah. So how do we help them to do that? We need to cooperate because we need to work together. This is very complicated. The patients need a lot of help from many, many different specialists. We can agree on that one. We need to network together. We need to have joint ventures, you know, parallel treatment. Somebody that's coming into us for treatment might need something else during that time. But if that would be a person that say, well, you could eat, you know, you could drink Diet Coke and eat, you know, artificial sweeteners, and I mean, we were bluing each other's treatment. You understand what I mean? We need to at least be agreeing on certain things around these clients. So we need to have a multidisciplinary team. So I thought, you know, I just let this one be here, Esther, and let you talk a little bit about your treatment and how you work here.
Yeah. Well, at the MFM Center, what we do is we get a person in for an interview, usually an hour long. Sometimes I need longer time with the person. And I do some screening. I have 3 to 4 different screening and questionnaires, depending on what the individual is telling me and showing me. I do what's a skýrsla after? A report, thank you. I do a report where I kind of go over what, you know, what's the problem, you know, and we go into the history of the person, of eating, dieting, and other issues. So we kind of scan, you know, what the weight or eating has, how that has been in the past, and then, you know, we get all the information similar to what she does in the ADDIS about, you know, childbearings and, you know, all the different, yeah, and different addictions. We talk about addiction, we talk about the genes, the family, and I ask very direct questions on trauma and And sometimes, I've asked the person if they have been, if they've had, my brain is not working very well. Hvað aftur hérna á íslensku? Trauma og hérna. Yeah, abuse. Thank you. And I've had people tell me that they have been severely abused in different ways, and they've never ever told anybody before. And even more than 60-year-old women and men that had been sexually abused when they were very young. And we have research that show that like 80% of people that have eating difficulties, they have been abused or had severe trauma as a child, or sometime during their life. So we kind of get a report, scheming, and assessment, and a diagnosis up to a point. I'm looking forward to learn the ADDIS, to be more precise in that. And if they come out positive, they can start our program, which we try to individualize as much as possible. It's mostly, though, in groups. I find that groups are the ones that help the most. And when I have people come in and they only want to be in individual sessions, it works up to a degree. And some people really need to start that way. They're not ready to go all the way into being abstinent from the addictive foods or the eating disorders that they are addicted to. So it's, we've had more than 2,000 people come in the last 8 years to the center, and a lot of them have had a lot of success, and a lot of them have not. They have had success while they were there, but then they decided that they didn't need that, and they are out there. And some managed to kind of find a way for themselves. Many are trying other things, and within different. All the diet industry and the doctors and everything, again and again and again. And a lot of them are coming back again and again and again. And I'm not going to go into, specifically that much. We have like seminars. We start off with a weekend where we get the person abstinent. And that's the first thing we work on. So get a person abstinent, to detox them basically from the chemical that they are addicted to, or they might be addicted to. So I like have a food plan that is kind of a base, and then I need to individualize that because different people have different needs, and some people have different blood sugar difficulties, and you get all kinds of that. And there I really, really need nutritionists, because I'm not. I just have the knowledge of food addiction and what works and what not. But we really need nutritionists that really go into it to learn how to help people with this. So I'm hoping soon that we will get some. And so then we go into basically working on educating about the disease, and educating about what is recovery. And what we educate about recovery is what, all the people that, it's the experience of, the millions of people doing, for example, 12 steps or similar things. And as Bitten said, most people need to have some kind of a we program. On my own, I'm not going to manage it. But if I am in a we program and I get to go to meetings, I get to be with people that understand me, I am stronger to go out there where I usually need to be with all the people that don't care or understand or anything about what I am all about and what I need to do one day at a time. So if I don't have that, the disease slowly creeps back on me. So that's some parts of the essence of the 12 steps, basically, and which has helped me personally and a lot of people. And I can really see that the people that go into a WE program, wherever and whatever it is, they are the ones that really continue on their road to recovery. And sometimes we have fallbacks, and that's part of, or relapses, that's part of the disease. It's a chronic disease, and with any diseases, you know, if we, like with the diabetes, if we don't do what is needed, we get sick. If we don't do what is needed with this disease, we get sick. And the way we get sick is that we relapse from our food program and we start feeling sick in our minds and in our emotions and in our spirit again. So what we are needing, in my opinion here, as I said earlier, is that we need to have places for people to detox, because I suffer the weekends that I have with people, and having to send them back home after the day. I suffer them because they experience a lot of withdrawal syndromes. They are crying, hysterical. They have flu symptoms. They have stomach problems, and they even start vomiting. So there are severe withdrawals from sugar and starches. And they need to be in a secure environment for that, so that they can be helped. And the medical establishment, we really need that for food addicts, just as much as we need it for people with alcoholism and drug addiction. So we need that, but we also need a lengthy, very lengthy treatment for people. Some people that come to me would need months, within a closed, at least a month, just to get focused, just to, for their body chemistry and for their minds to clear up. 3 months for some, and people that have like both eating disorders and food addiction, for example. They have 2 diseases, and maybe others too. I must admit, some I have been able to assist, but a lot of them I can't. I don't have the possibility. They need so much more care, and they need to be helped from, with so many other therapists. So that's what I would like to see. And so it's basically similar model to what like SAA, Krýsuvík, Hlaðgerðarkot, and the other treatment facilities for other addictions here are doing. We need to detox people, and we need to give them directions and support to start get the energy and the strength to be abstinent and to be on their road to recovery. And the 12 steps are the parts that the place where you can really, how do you say, nurture your recovery with other people. So we have 5 minutes left. So what do you want to add to that?
Well, nothing really.
Relapse something?
Yeah, I work a lot with relapse prevention. I think relapse prevention, going through a client risk situation and warning signals. So most of all the hidden warning signals that everybody have, the pattern you have when you go back to the drug, is very important to do during the primary treatment, in the very beginning, because you got to go home and meet this, what do I do, when I come home and travel and all that. So I work a lot with risk situations and how they work together with, supporting each other with the risk situation. First, is this a risk situation to me today? Then what do I do, can I call somebody, can you support me today? I'm going to be in a risk situation, you know, I'm going to have a meeting with my boss and it's horrible, you know, whatever. So that, and also my warning signals, you know, and one of the warning signals that everybody has, which is very, very sneaky, is being tired. You know, it's not very in or modern to be tired today. We should all work like crazy and never be tired. Have you heard about that one? I said it's very healthy to be tired. But, you know, being tired or lack of energy. You know, we also do a lot where we have a lot of energy vampires around us most of the time. You know, a lot of things takes energy. We live in a very stressful environment. So we need to learn about that. What is, you know, taking my energy and how do I add energy? So I'll work a lot with that. So that's relapse. Yeah. And somebody asked me about behavior. This is what I think, but 10% is the actual food, the nutrition, you know, supplements and the physical plan, healing. 45% is thoughts, feelings, and actions, behavior. And 50% is community, you know. You can't do it alone. You need support. Recovery is slow because brain bypass, you know, to build new pathways in your brain and to reactivate the one that are fogged down by sugar and carbs takes a long time, you know. The biggest problems you get from addiction is in your prefrontal cortex, you know. And we don't have time to go into that, but that's, so the endurance needs to be activated, the risk-taking, you know, the boring, letting go. We need to work a lot on those things in order to handle, you know, to eat in a different way, one meal at a time, day after day, 7 days a week, you know, every month. So that takes time.
Just maybe a quick one about the brain is that, thank you, is that it's, you know, it takes at least a year, maybe a year and a half, for the brain to recover and to become somewhat normal. So you can see that a person will need a lot of assistance, at least for a year, from a year up to 3 years. I would suspect, you know, is the time period that the recovery needs to take place. And this is if a person continues and doesn't really have a lot of relapses. If a person relapses, they go back to the disease and they, you know, we need to start recounting
all
again.
Over, yeah, that's true. So we need to focus on the brain. And the earlier we start this, you know, the better. And also it's important to understand that it is a family illness, you know. We need to work with the whole family around and not only the person that is afflicted, you know. So we need to involve the family, the village, the town. I think Bill White is a man that I'm very fond of. He's written a book that's called Slaying the Dragon, about the treatment in US, and he has a blog too. But he says that everybody need to think, how do I add on so that my community becomes more recovering or healthier? What can I do? What can each one of us do something to, you know, from choosing good food, you know, and not keep buying junk food or, you know, there's a lot of things we can do. Absolutely. So, and we also have to have new approaches and new ways of thinking with those who do not want to change. Is there something wrong in their brain? Do we need to use a different approach to reach them, the ones that want to keep the drug, you know? Because some people do not want to let go of the drug. That's the way it is. But we also need to keep it simple. This is one of my favorite saying in the 12-step program. This is a very simple program for complicated people. So it's easy to, you know, make it complicated, but it doesn't have to be in that way. So be very careful with your brain. You only have one. You can't buy a new one. Thank you.
We thank Bitten and Esther for that, and maybe a time for a few questions. I will give you this if you want to ask. I will start with one question.
Yeah.
Now I'm working as a GP. I only have 20 minutes with the patient.
Yeah.
He comes in with a complaint that I have to address, and he's overweight. He has complications, diabetes, hypertension. How would you advise me to address that problem? Because it takes a lot of time, and I don't always have that time.
Yeah, I understand that fully. I know. So what I would do is the screening, you know, the one that you have the 6 simple questions. And then if they answer 4 or more yes, you know, you could have your nurses give that to the client before they come into your office so that you have that. And then you could start talking to the patient from that, you know, saying that, do you think that your eating habits and your overweight could have something to do with your diabetes? Should we be looking at that? And then, of course, you need to refer them somewhere to get more knowledge. Or you have one of the nurses doing the ADDIS, which is in more in-depth. I mean, it's not something you can do in that time, so I know that problem. But you could start setting seeds and you could water it. Because one thing is very important to understand. It doesn't matter how much I talk to the client. If you as a doctor say something, you are more important even if you know less. Doctors are very powerful to the client. So it's very important to really have some knowledge and know what you're saying.
I would really like to see the ADDIS and have a nurse that could do it.
Yeah.
Really
it would be very helpful for you.
I just want to add to it that Matarheilla has a pamphlet out, and you can print it out from, it's going to be possible to print it out from our website probably after the weekend. And it's got minimum but good knowledge about what it is, what's the symptoms, and where they can get help. So that might be something to start with for people. You will all have this in your material.
Any questions?
I've been very impressed with having you here. I was saying to my colleague, who's a nurse, that you should teach here in the nursing apartment in the university. And
I don't even teach nurses in Sweden yet. Well, yeah, some come, but not at the nursing school.
Because from what I hear is that you have such an enormous experience and knowledge.
Well, 22 years is a long time. 6,000 patients. Yeah.
But I also thought it was very interesting what you said about the cognitive behavioral therapy, that it didn't work. I would want to hear a little bit more about that.
What I mean is that nothing works unless you address the problem and take away the drug. So many of my clients have gone in very good psychotherapy, very good cognitive behavior therapy. I mean, really skilled, good counselors, all kinds of treatment, to physical therapists, nutritional therapists, coaches, teachers, blah, 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 blah. As long as nobody tells them they are an addict and take away the drug, nothing going to work on that brain. And there's actually 2 very good books out in Sweden right now about that. I don't know if they are translated, but it is, one is a good friend of mine, he's a medical doctor, and he's been traveling all over the world, going to ashrams in India and sweat caves in US and those mindfulness centers and yoga centers and what have you. All his life he's been chasing recovery. And he didn't understand he was an addict, so nobody told him that until he totally collapsed. And then he met the person who said, "What? Maybe you're an addict." I said, "What's that?" So he got help and take away the drug, and his brain cleared, and he can look back at his life when he's sharing this, that all these things just never worked because he kept taking the drug. So that's what I mean, that once you take away the drug and your brain is healed, psychotherapy works, go sweating in somewhere in US works, ashram works. What I'm trying to say is, as long as somebody is a prisoner of your drug, nothing will work. Am I more clear then? Oh, okay. Pardon me?
Name of the doctor?
His name is Roger Nilsson. He's an MD, and he's written a book called Mot stormens öga. He's actually a world champion sailor, so he's on the internet. He's a very, very interesting guy.
More questions?
So assuming that you can take the drug away, what results are we seeing and what relapse percentage are we experiencing in real life of your two centers in your kind of
If we take
view?
the drug away?
Yeah.
If we take the drug away, how many will relapse? Well, 99.9% at some time. Food is, that's why it's so difficult to treat. And that's why you can't really, fly off the handle when your clients relapse. You just say, well, that's what food addicts do. So what, big deal? Because once you have a heroin addict and you treat them, relapse is much tougher and much harder to come by. You see what I mean? Once they have a good treatment, not very many really go back. And the same with alcoholics, because you don't need those drugs, but you need to eat every day. So I would say that it takes about 2 years to get an alcoholic and drug addict stable, where they're really drug-free and living the new program and rewiring and everything. And it would take about 7 to 10 years with a food addict. So this is a relapse-prone illness. You have to teach your client that relapse is not a mistake. Relapse is going on here, but that doesn't mean that you as a food addict can plan to relapse at Christmas, right? That's a heck of a difference. See, many think, oh yeah, everybody relapse, I could have a little candy. Bullshit, that's very dangerous, that's Russian roulette. But you have to remember, as a professional working with it, people do relapse when it comes to food, very easy and very often, because they don't know their biochemistry yet. They don't understand euphoric recall, addiction memory circuits, so you need to be very patient and very understanding with that. And you have to say, well, if you fall off the horse, get back up. If you fall off the horse, get back up. And you need to teach them how to get back up, instead of laying there and feeling miserable. At least that's my experience. I don't know what you say.
Absolutely the same experience.
Okay.
So it's a chronic disease. It's not some will be struck with abstinence that just is there. And
very few.
Yeah,
very few.
And some will not. And then then as Bitten has so beautifully said so many times, then we really need to help that person to a great extent. We need to check on her brain chemistry, her body and type, and the different types of addiction that, because like we have a group, we have basically 2 groups of food addicts, which is a kind of umbrella name maybe. It's the ones that really crave sugary things. That's she.
Chocolate intravenously.
Yeah. And the ones that really crave grains. That's me. We're the different types, and
and I work a lot with. I test the neurotransmitter dominance, and what I see is the ones that, like me, have a dopamine acetylcholine dominance. We're speed freaks. We prefer sugar. We prefer chocolate and ice cream and candy. And the ones that have a GABA serotonin dominance, they love bread, pizza, pasta, and all that. So I always test that on my client. And then I test the neurotransmitter deficiency. And one thing I see today is that most people today have a lack of GABA. GABA is the anxiety break in the brain, is the calm down. If you have too low of a GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid, what's going to happen is that you never really fully recuperate. So when you sleep at night, you sleep half a meter above the bed. And you're constantly tired but restless, tired and restless. Your body's never really recovering, healing. So we need to add a lot of amino acids to these people, and that can really help in a relapse. So we need to go further and do those testings very extensively. And some have a thyroid that's not working, and some have adrenal fatigue, and some have a lot of dysbiosic. You have a bad stomach flora, And more research is coming into that if you have a bad stomach flora, you get a tremendous amount of craving, sugar craving, which you have a hard time handling. So we need to use probiotics. You know, there's a lot of new stuff that we need to work with on these kind of things to help people in recovery. So it takes a lot more, of course, than just doing the regular treatment.